We've got the very latest on Matthew Stafford, who will be the Rams starting quarterback this Sunday, and 3 depth chart changes that we want to see. And also, Jared Goff did what? That's coming up next here on Locked On Rams.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Ramley, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Rams, your daily podcast covering your Los Angeles Rams, free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're also available over on YouTube, and we're so close to 10,000 subscribers. So if you want to do us a huge favor, join the party, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, hit that like button, and let us know. What is one change you want to see for the Rams in the second half of the season? My name is Doug McCain. My friends call me D-Mac. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMac_LA. I've been covering LA sports for over a decade, 24/7 Sports, SI, Dodgers Nation, now the Rams for Locked On. And as always, I'm joined by the Rams pre-half and post-game show host for the Rams flagship radio station, ESPN 710 LA. He's in his 8th season covering your Los Angeles Rams. He's known as the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers. You can follow him on X at Travis Rogers. And on today's show, we're talking some Jared Goff. What did Jared Goff do when he found out he was traded to the Detroit Lions? We got 3 changes. We want to see the depth chart heading into the second half of the season. We got an update on Matthew Stafford, Ernest Jones, and Rob Havenstein. But first, this episode of Locked On Rams is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Now, Travis, we're going to get to the Stafford news in a second, but first, Stetson Bennett. He's been out of the spotlight since he was placed on the non-football illness list in September. And with the Rams on a bye, Benett, he was in Georgia. He took in the Ole Miss Georgia game in Athens. It was his first public appearance since going on the NFI list. McVay said earlier in the year that they didn't expect to have him back. Found it really interesting to see him on the sideline there in Georgia.
Yeah. I mean, look, I don't know why he's been gone. I think we could all take a guess as to why he's been gone. I don't know. But going back to the place that it seems like a lot of this stuff got started, I don't know, seems like a bad idea to me. And I don't know. It was a terrible pick that gets worse, and that the Rams basically have not said his name out loud since that last preseason game, and he showed up at a college game at his alma mater. I think tells you all you need to know about how the Rams look at this. That they basically have kind of punted on this. It wasn't, hey, look, we're looking to have him back. We're here to help him make sure that he can get back. It was more like, yeah, we don't think he's coming back. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know why he's been gone, but it was weird seeing him pop up. That's all I can say.
Definitely was from an optics standpoint. I don't know if it was the best move for him going back there to Georgia, home sweet home. But yeah, it doesn't feel like he's going to be back with the Rams at any point. But yeah, I don't think that was your first public appearance there. Not so sure I agree with that from an optics standpoint. But hey, they've already made their moves. Of course, you signed Carson Wentz, you cut Brett Rippon, and they got some news on Matthew Stafford. So Stafford, of course, he missed week 9 with a thumb injury. He suffered that during the Cowboys game. And McVay said he was optimistic that he would be able to be back after the bye. And he confirmed today that Matthew Stafford will be starting for the Rams at home against the Seattle Seahawks. So he did kind of really tiptoe around the idea of him not being at 100%, saying he'll be pushing through, but still Matthew Stafford, even a 90% Matthew Stafford, gives them the best chance to win.
Oh, sure. Look, I mean, without him, we saw what that looks like. And I don't know what Carson Wentz is going to look like when if he gets into a game, but I think you heard the same thing I did, Doug, which was not, oh, he's good to go. We're back to square one. This was more, we'll see what we can get out of him. He'll muscle through. He'll get through it one way or the other. I think this is the last gasp of this season, right? This is the last. And look, I could sit here and tell Rams fans things that maybe they think they want to hear, like, oh no, they still got a chance. They don't, but they do have a mathematical chance. So while that exists, I think you got to put your best foot forward. I think you got to take your shots. And if Matthew Stafford can get hot and can lead them to a couple of wins, then great. Let's see what happens. But Seattle is a pretty good team. Arizona got Kyler Murray back. Cleveland looks like a really good team. We know how good Baltimore is. New Orleans seems to beat the bad teams on their schedule for the most part. The Commanders are kind of all over the place. There's just not a lot of wins left out there. I think this is their last chance with Matthew Stafford. Does it give him a chance to win? Sure. Do I expect him to win? I don't know. And I'm still not entirely sure that was the plan from the beginning.
Yeah, Travis, and I agree with you. You bring up the mathematical chance. They've got the bye week. It's hope springs eternal after a bye week, right? You're still technically involved in the playoffs, and you're not out of it yet. Yeah. So I do think you owe it to yourself as an organization to put your best foot forward.
And the other guys on the team too, Doug Mack, right? Like it's not just but the guys that are out there fighting and competing deserve to continue to fight and compete until it's over. And it's over from just a weird stuff I guess could happen, but from a practical purpose, it's over, but it's not over yet. We're getting close, but it's not over yet.
Yeah, and I think it was very calculated that he goes on to Pat McAfee on the same day that there was a rumor out there, a prediction really, that he would retire after the season. He made it very clear. He loves playing this game. He loves being in the locker room. He loves to compete, and he's never going to get this back again. And he's someone that's tough to keep off the field. Let's be honest with you. The guy likes to go out there and ball, and I think you said it best that this team, guys that have been out there, you owe it to them. You owe it to your franchise to establish a culture where you are going to give it your all until you're mathematically out of it. Now, when that's the case, then we'll have that conversation on what really is the best thing for this franchise moving forward. But yeah, you get Stafford back, Rob Havenstein is back, Ernest Jones is back. You go against a Seattle team who they won after a walk-off kick on Sunday. They're going to want to try to avenge that loss early in the season. If you look at FanDuel right now, the Rams are a 1.5 dog at home. Rams 3-3 start. You saw they've lost 3 straight since. So they look to get back on track against the Seattle team and just try to keep some glimmer of hope moving forward that they can possibly make the playoffs.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, that when Stafford showed up on McAfee, it was, the question has been the question with Matthew Stafford, and I think will continue to be the question with Matthew Stafford is, how much longer are you going to do this? And the answer was encouraging that he loves to play, he loves the city, he loves to compete and all these things. And I believe him. I don't think there's even a hint of cap in that. I think it's all very true, but it also wasn't, I'm going to be playing for a really long time. It was my wheels are wobbling. I'm not going to play till the wheels come all the way off, but they're wobbling right now. I think that, this is the last, let's throw one more good punch at this thing. Let's see what happens. Do I think Matthew Stafford will be the quarterback next season? Yes. Do I think that he'll be the quarterback after that? I don't know. Probably not. But this is the guy that you got, and let's take one more shot with him.
Yeah, when he said that his body was feeling decent, that didn't sound very encouraging to me, right? That sounds like a guy who's definitely very sore at this stage of his career in his late 30s. By the way, Stetson Bennett used to babysit him back in the day. So just to put that into perspective there, really all coming full circle. But I will say this, I want to say this, Travis, though, that no matter what happens, I still have grown. Maybe it's just because I'm a week without the Rams. I'm kind of missing them a little bit. But I still feel like this is a very interesting season one way or the other. I find it fascinating that if Stafford comes back and for whatever reason gets re-injured, you have to shut him down, you still get Carson Wentz. Now, make what you will about Carson Wentz, but it's still going to be pretty fascinating to see Carson Wentz in a Rams uniform. It's still going to be really fascinating to see if these younger guys continue to develop because, look, we're in Hollywood, right? You got auditions going on left and right. Auditions for the 2024 Rams are happening right now.
I think they are, and I think auditions for the 2025 Rams are happening for right now. I think that there's a whole lot going on that has very little to do with whether or not they're winning Sunday to Sunday over the next 8 weeks. I think that unofficially, you're in evaluation season. Last season, officially, evaluation season happened about Thanksgiving, right? Where it's just like, okay, they lost 6 in a row. They were 3-9 at one point. They're not 3-9. 3-7 is, it could be as soon as this weekend. And if you win, okay, you got Arizona coming up next, and you got a chance to go and maybe get within a game of 500 again. And you never know what happens after that. But it is interesting. I agree with you. And I think that the most interesting part of this is when you've come to the irrefutable conclusion that you're out of it, how aggressively do you get out of it? And I think that's what they have left to figure out, because you want to continue to see, look, Kyren Williams is going to come back at some point this season, hopefully. You're going to want to see him. You're going to want to see Puka continue to thrive. You're going to want to figure out what's going on with Cooper Kupp. How much more does Aaron Donald want to do this? There's a lot of questions over the course of the last 8 weeks of the season.
Yeah, exactly. But also, too, I think the Rams might have been the vibe killer for the NFC West last week. Without them playing, they all seem to have success. So I was sorry, guys, just the Rams fault. I don't know what it is about
Could
that. But
be.
yeah,
It could
we
be.
still got lots to play for. And here's the one of the big storylines for the second part of the season is, will there be any changes to the depth chart depending on the way that this season goes, the direction they're heading in? That's coming up next here on Locked On Rams.
All right, so we're getting towards playoffs. We're getting towards the beginning of the NBA season. You're getting towards the season of hockey. If you're a hockey fan like me, bowl games, not that far around. And then you wait till the last minute to get the tickets, right? This is where the Gametime app comes in, right? This is why you got to put the Gametime app on your phone so you don't have to worry about when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Gametime is the fastest and easiest way to buy tickets for all of your sporting events, concerts, comedy, theater events, everything that's near you. And with killer last minute deals, all in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee, Gametime takes all the guesswork out of buying tickets so you can just be chill and you can get ready to go see your next big thing. Plus, you can see exactly where you're going to sit. The all in prices means you don't get halfway home and you're like, wait a second, where'd that extra $5, $10, $12 come from? All in prices show your total upfront so you know you're getting a great deal without those hidden fees. So take the guesswork out of buying your next group of tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. The code again is LOCKEDONNFL, LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Create that account on the Gametime app, redeem that code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your next purchase, and have a great time at the game.
And we are off and running here on Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday, free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We also want to send a special shout out to our everyday listeners out there. We appreciate you watching every episode, listening to every episode, commenting down below. And you can be an everyday listener too. You can just join the club. Membership is 100% free, and you won't miss a thing about your Los Angeles Rams. Now, Travis, here in our second segment, we've got a couple depth chart changes that I want to see heading into the second half of the season. I want to get your opinion on some of these moves. And the first thing I want to see is not only less Darian Kendrick, we're already seeing that at the moment, but I want to see Tre Tomlinson as the starting cornerback at some point. Now, the Rams, of course, they've already been working Kendrick out of the lineup, but in doing so, you saw Kobe Durant go from the slot to the outside, and even when he was injured, you saw Duke Shelley. You also saw Quentin Lake at the nickel spot. Free Tre Tomlinson.
Yes, I agree with you. I would like to see him play more. I guess my question is, why have we not? Because like you said, with DK, it's not like he's been absolutely fantastic and there just hasn't been a way to get other people on. We've seen other people come on. We've seen other guys move around at different positions like you just talked about. We've seen some older players, or maybe not older, but more experienced players like Duke Shelley get an opportunity here and there. Why is Tre Tomlinson not? Again, I think that, we pay attention and we're doing these things, but we're not in practice. We're not at the meetings. We're not getting to see what's happening every single day. And that this was somebody that you did hear quite a bit about in preseason, that you did hear the team talk about in the preseason, and yet he doesn't get on the field that much other than in some special teams moments is interesting to me. I agree with you. I would like to see him play, but I would be lying if I said that the thing that's most curious is to me is why he hasn't played already.
Yeah, he's only played 12 defensive snaps so far this season. Look, Travis, most of the time when I want to see players play, it's because I think they're good and better than the player that they're replacing, and they have a chance to be a star. I'm not even saying that with Tre Tomlinson. I don't think he's going to be the next coming of Antoine Winfield or someone like that. I just want to see what he has, whether that be good or bad, because if you look at the future, Akella Witherspoon, Duke Shelley, both free agents. Kobe Durant, if they think he's better on the outside, got to move him to the outside. Is Quentin Lake a long-term solution? So I just think that we're at that stage that we talked about in the first segment, that we have to see what we have in each individual player. And if Tre Tomlinson has the potential to be a piece moving forward, you have to have at least some clarity of that heading into the draft.
Unless they think they already know. Right. If they think they already know,
Fair
then
point.
it's look, if we put it, because we always say, well, what's the worst that could happen? What if it's worse than what you have? Right. And Look, Raheem Morris, I trust Raheem Morris. I think he's good. I think he's a really good defensive coordinator. Sean McVay, I think, is going to put his best foot forward. I don't think that, they're waiting to spring somebody on somebody. I'd like to see him play. I'd like to see it with my own two eyes, but I'll go back to it again, that maybe the answer is he's not playing is because they already know the answer to why he's not playing.
Yeah, and he's a Thorpe Award winner. You see his aggression out there. I think that can get him into trouble against that Denver game. Almost ripped that dude's helmet off. So maybe it's a maturity level thing, him transitioning. But I do think that maybe if the season kind of goes south a little bit, they're just going to throw him in there and just see what he has. Now, next one I want to see, this is for a different reason, is rest Tyler Higbee. I want to see more Davis Allen, more Bryson Hopkins, potentially some Hunter Long. But the issue with Tyler Higbee, everyone out there saying he's washed, saying he's trash. You know how fans are either trash or they're him, right? You know how it is, right? There's nothing in between, right? With Tyler Higbee, though, he's dealing with an injury. I mean, it's been reported that Higbee doesn't have full range of motion in one of his arms, and he injured his hand in the loss against the Packers. You just gave him an extension, so that tells me you want him to be a part of your future. I know this team is eyeing 2024, possibly 2025 to make another run. Why risk having Tyler Higbee go out there now and risking further injury?
I'm with you. And it's not like he's been particularly effective in the time that he's been out there for all the reasons you said. Sean McVay, before they went into their bye after they lost to Green Bay, kind of said, guys, he's messed up. He's hurt. This is not because he's not playing well. It's because he's incapable of playing at the best of his ability because of the physical shape that he's in right now. I agree with you. I'd like to see Hopkins. I'd like to see some of these other guys get to step into these roles. What's curious to me is that this is the one in the Sean McVay era, we've seen just about every position on this team turn over, with the exception of Aaron Donald's position and Tyler Higbee's. It's really interesting because we've seen big name defensive guys come in and out, whether it's Aqib Talib or Marcus Peters or Jalen Ramsey, in, out. They changed quarterbacks. They went from Jared Goff, number 1 overall pick, Super Bowl guy, to a longtime veteran who also took him to the Super Bowl. We've seen Todd Gurley come and go. We've seen all the other guys. Robert Woods has come and gone. Odell's come and gone. Von Miller, Tyler Higbee's one of the few pieces that have it. Rob Havenstein, I should say him. I should throw him in there too. He's the other one that's been there the entire time. But I'm with you that we really have never gotten a good feel for what a backup tight end might look like on this roster. And I think we're getting close to taking a good look at it.
And it does feel like, you'll see his last game, missed that wham block pretty badly. He doesn't feel like he's fully confident right there in his current physical state. And you look at his drop passes, he has 3 drops with a 10.3% drop percentage. He's been very inconsistent as a blocker. So, Davis Allen is someone who they've been quietly working more into the mix. He's played 29 snaps, but even that, Bryson Hopkins, of course, give him a big shout out for 4 catches for 47 yards there in Super Bowl 56. But it does feel like you need to at least see what you have at that position, because with Matthew Stafford the way he is, having a strong, dependable tight end can give them another target outside of a Cooper Kupp and a Puka Nacua at that stage. And you talk about not having range and motion. Look, if I didn't have range and motion in my arm, I wouldn't be doing this show right now, let alone playing in an NFL game against NFL players as a tight end, right?
No, look, Tyler Higbee's a tough guy. And when Tyler Higbee's healthy, I think he's a really good football player. We've seen him have some big days for the Rams. And, kind of running through all the guys that they haven't turned over. Think about the other 2 guys we've talked about. It's Aaron Donald, who's the best, never mind of his era. He might be the best ever at that position. And then you got a guy like Rob Havenstein, who's, going on 10 years in this league and been rock solid in his position as well. That Higbee's another one of these guys that has just played every single week. I think speaks to the ability that he has when he's healthy. I just don't think he's healthy. So let's take a look at the next group of guys.
100%. Now, this next one, I think I might get a little pushback on this one, but I'm saying start at Zach Evans at some point. Yes, Kyren Williams coming back. You brought Hendo back. I really don't want to see Hendo go down on first contact all season long. Royce Freeman, he's someone who doesn't move the needle. I think Zach Evans, if you're going to draft someone that we were told was someone has the potential to be a steal of the draft, the guy who had a first-round grade at one point, if you're just going to use one of those years on his rookie scale contract and not even see what you have in him, I think that's a big miss. I think it's kind of a disservice to why even draft him in the first place.
Yeah, I think we're going to get all of the things that you're talking about, D-Mac. I think that it's just a matter of time until It's obvious that there's nothing else that's about to, or let me rephrase, more obvious that what's about to happen is actually happening. And I think you will see him, because you're right. If you're going to spend a draft pick on him, even if it is a relatively, low risk draft point, you'd like to get something, because you can't just whiff on too many of these, right? You whiffed on Stetson Bennett, big time. You whiffed on Logan Bruss, big time. You may have whiffed on Tutu Atwell as well. That as promising as that looked for the first couple of games, we're right back in the Tutu zone where he does not affect games at all. And these are second round pick, fourth round pick, second round pick. You got to hit on some of these at some point. So I wouldn't mind seeing him get a shot. I think that we're real close to anybody that's wearing a Rams uniform is going to get a chance to play pretty soon. And Moss is definitely on that list.
Yeah, and it's just kind of touch on the Tutu thing. I was watching some games. It's like every single route, it's an out route, right? It's an out breaking route, some dig. Like, where are the shallow crosses? Where are the deep verticals with Tutu Atwell? I don't know if that's a Tutu problem, a play calling problem, but yeah, at this point, it's fair to have the conversation about his lack of production. He's going to be somewhere to be monitoring closely towards the end of the season to see if he can get some consistent production, if he can get open, how much they do trust him. But it's going to be very interesting. Now, coming up next, of course, we got to talk about Jared Goff. Jared Goff had some very interesting comments about how he dealt with the trade to the Detroit Lions and the success he's having. We're talking some Jared Goff next here on Locked On Rams.
Right now, new customers with FanDuel, they get a $150 credit in bonus bets with any winning $5 money bet. So why not score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook? Because you heard me right? Any winning $5 bet gets you $150 in bonus bets. That's $150 if your team wins. And look, you can play all sorts of different games at FanDuel. The app is incredibly easy to use. So if you've ever been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time than to get in the action than right now. Spreads, like D-Mac mentioned, Rams are 1.5-point home dogs. Player props, you see a number that you think your guy's going to go over or under, jump on that. Over, under, team totals, point totals, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season in style. Close with a bang. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL.
And welcome back to Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday, free and available wherever you get your podcast. Now, Travis, got to talk some Jared Goff. He's putting together another really strong season for the Detroit Lions. They win again. He was back at SoFi Stadium. Definitely had some weird feelings towards it. But hey, first we're going to talk about, though, is Andrew Whitworth talking about what he did after the trade. So apparently the story is Goff showed up at Whitworth's house in the days after the deal was done, and he basically wanted to find out what would happen. I mean, Whitworth said, and he's like, I told Sean I still want to do our exit meeting. And I was like, you crazy. Why would you want to do an exit? And he said, I want him to tell me right to my face what I did wrong. I want to hear from him. How do I get better? He wanted closure. So I have a lot of respect for Jared Goff. A little bit of a crazy ex-girlfriend vibe here happening like in the moment, but I have a lot of respect for him to do this and want to address that and kind of face the music with Sean McVay.
Yeah, it's funny. I agree with you. I share your feelings. I find myself, now that I don't care if he wins or loses, rooting for him. I want him to do well, right? Like, because he's not a bad guy. He seemed like he is invested in this. Like anybody that say, hey, because the question is, why don't you like me anymore? And to really want an answer to that question is pretty interesting. Now, the answer is obvious because you kept throwing it to the wrong team and fumbling. It's not like there was a lot of mystery to this. It was the same mistake over and over and over again. So I don't think that there's some secret that Sean McVay was keeping from him. He fumbled a lot. He held the ball too long. He threw interceptions. So that's not a great recipe for quarterbacks. And I think that Sean McVay's offense needed to kind of go to that next level with somebody that had a little more experience, shall we say. But I do find myself rooting for him. And I was rooting for him on Sunday against the Chargers because Chargers. But I I have no ill will towards Jared Goff, but hey, why don't you like me? I think we all knew the answer to that without having to hear it from Sean McVay's mouth.
Yeah, and I do want to point out that Goff said, I got some answers and gained a lot of closure. He was forthright. So it's not like Sean McVay basically turned the lights off in his house and didn't answer the door or something like that. He was more than willing to have the conversation. Sean McVay, he's a straight shooter. You point out on this podcast multiple times that as far as head coach speak goes, he will tell you more than most head coaches around this league. I'm sure he was dead honest with him. I am old enough to remember back in the days where people thought that Sean McVay was in Goff's ear right before the snap, telling him which reads to make, who to throw to. And McVay, he deserves a lot of credit for Goff's success in LA. You saw more pre-snap motions, them going to play action passes, really had more of his fingerprints on the offense as far as his success. But I'm with you. I can't really explain why, but I really softened up to rooting for Jared Goff. I think he's really grown up and matured as a player. And look, the bottom line is he's limiting mistakes, things that he wasn't doing with the Rams for a certain stretch there.
Look, it's rare where you can say this. It worked out for everybody.
Yeah.
It literally worked out for the Rams got exactly what they wanted, which was a veteran quarterback who could win games when nothing else was working. They got that, and they won the Super Bowl because they had a quarterback who could get things done when nothing else was working. Jared Goff also got to go get a fresh start on a good team that seems to appreciate what it is that he does. The expectations are virtually zero. He's not carrying the burden of being the first overall draft pick, of being the guy that you emptied your future draft capital to go get. And every time he threw an interception, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe what we did to get this guy. He's a guy that you got to be, quite frankly, to be a short-term answer until you could draft your next guy. And he turned into a very decent NFL quarterback. And they're going to win their division. They're going to go to the playoffs. It wouldn't be totally insane if they ended up in an NFC championship game or better. And good for Jared Goff. Everybody got exactly what they wanted.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I mean, Jared Goff, I don't think could lead the Rams on that final drive that beat the Cincinnati Bengals. Even this version of Jared Goff, I don't think does that. It's great he's having success. Fine, I'll be happy for him. But still, I'm not going back to the conversation whether or not that was the right move because it's a no-brainer. But, yeah, it's got to be tough for Jared Goff to really watch his former team go on to win a Super Bowl. And it feels like, okay, it was addition by subtraction and that Matthew Stafford was the final piece of that puzzle. He had to watch his ex have a baby with someone else. And that baby was the Lombardi Trophy, right? That can't be easy. So give him a lot of credit.
Yeah, I do too. And it's not like it took the Rams 5 years to figure it out. He left, new guy came in, bam, Super Bowl. I mean, it happened pretty quick.
Mission accomplished year one.
Yeah, it's pretty jarring to have to watch that happen. But I think he's responded really well. He seems to fit in Detroit really well, something I did not think was going to be true, but he's leaned into it. And here's one thing that, people that have listened to this podcast going way back to the time that Jared Goff was the quarterback, and I was doing this, is that simply he's got a lot of problems, or problems is wrong, deficiencies in my estimation as a quarterback overall. Toughness was not one of them. Jared Goff is a incredibly tough guy. I respect him. I hope he does really well. I just hope it doesn't come at the expense of the Rams at any point. But I'm rooting for the guy. I have nothing but good thoughts headed his way.
Yeah, and I've seen people out there saying, oh, if he wins the Super Bowl this year or next year, that means that the Lions won the trade. Look, the reality is at the time, that version of Jared Goff at that age, with that experience, could not have done what Matthew Stafford did. Yeah, I could not be happier for Jared Goff, unless it's against the Rams. But like you said it best, both teams won. But that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Rams. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DMAC_LA. And as always, you can follow the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers, on X at Travis Rogers. And until next time, whose house? It's Locked On Rams house.